It all begins with Junichi, the protagonist, kneeling in front of a GAL who calls him disgusting. Going back in time, our MC is arriving at school, seeing all of his classmates have couples. When he goes to his classroom, he meets with his friends, the weirdos, Shinpei, Minoru, and Kigo. None of the four did anything fun during vacations, and none got a girlfriend either. Junichi is depressed because he thought that by that point, he would have already gotten a girlfriend. What seems to be a school grader appears to give the protagonist his lunch, which he forgot. Turns out to be Nene, a neighbor and childhood friend. Despite her childish looks, she's as old as them and has really big brains, reason why Junichi's friends insist on being introduced to her, to which he refuses. Immediately after, Kashii, a girl with whom Junichi shared classes last year, approaches to say hello. She's labeled as beautiful by Kigo, Shinpei, and Minoru due to her sweet and beautiful appearance, although she doesn't have big enough a pays. The Weirdos Club start reading magazines in plain sight, to Junichi's utter horror, but they do it basically to ruin the mood for everybody else. Showing him some spooky pages, they convince the MC to read one, and he somehow agrees. Then we see Yukana, the GAL from the beginning, getting disgusted once again when she notices what he's reading. Junichi is lamenting the misunderstanding with Yukana while his friend plot in the background. They should try to date one of the GALs since they're the easiest and the most ones, and to prove it, they show Junichi an article on one of their magazines. The protagonist starts fantasizing about Yame, who sits on top of him promising to make a man out of him. Once done daydreaming, his friends inform him that they have decided it is going to be him the one who will ask Yukana out, to which of course Junichi denies. Minoru grabs him and Kigo runs with a love letter they hide in Yame's locker. When Yukana finds it, she declines an invitation to the karaoke from Ranko, her friend, to go where Junichi appointed on the letter. Finding that Yukana actually attended, Junichi realizes he has no clue as what to say. In the middle of a crisis, he remembers that Shinpei told him that GALs wouldn't say no if he bowed and begged. And that's how we go back to the very beginning. When he's already kneeling on the floor, he realizes that only a asks somebody out in such a weird way. Yet when he looks up, he sees Yukana's pants that are barely covered by the short skirt. So he gets excited and once again tries to think of a way to get out of that situation to succeed and date Yame. They start talking, and Yukana asks him why does he like her. Truth is, Junichi doesn't have an answer to that, at least not a non-lewd on. So he starts panicking again, wanting to run away. Yame reveals she already knows his only purpose is to love his virginity. Junichi is ready to run away when he sees her panties again, and his brainless savage side winds making him stay. Yukana tricks him saying that if he admits his intentions that he can have a better look. He falls for it, and she mocks him. Yukana asks him if he really likes her, but thinking it's just another trick, he wants to leave. Yukana grabs his arm and corners him against a wall, admitting she kinda likes, so yes, she wants to have a date with him, nor the prota nor us believe it yet. Ep 2. During the night, Junichi reflects upon what happened, still finding it impossible to believe. Him dating such a hot gal. A part of him thinks it's just a big prank and that she will ruin his life, but another part of him wants to believe she actually likes him. After a vile fight in his head, the savage side wins once more, so his goal remains the same, doing it with her. Next day, our protagonist is walking to school, still having in mind how terrible is everything going to be when his friends appear, apologizing for the joke, and when they find out Junichi is going to have problems with Yame, they promise to help him and support him no matter what. Well, that's until Yame sends a cute and selfie to Junichi and they see it. Accusing him of treason, they get mad. Yet once clarified the issue, they start giving advice on how to deal with Yukana. Shinpei starts giving advice, although he is just as as the rest of them. Take her to a karaoke. Why? Well, that's easy. Because of the XX rule of the karaoke. And what's that rule? Something Shinpei discovered after working at a karaoke. One picks a song, the couple sings a duet together, the girl starts taking her and that's it. Right in the room of the karaoke it happens. Hence, if Junichi follows this rule, he will most likely lose his virginity. When he arrives in his classroom, Yu talks to him in a friendly way, but he nervously walks away from the conversation, as he can't ask for her advice. But before he can put much thought to it, Yame pops up, hugging his arms with her big appes announcing they're dating. He wants to invite her, but it's impossible since everybody is talking to them. Again, out of envy and jealousy, his friend abandoned him. When classes are over, Yame simply grabs his hand by saying she wants to go somewhere with him. Nene, who was waiting for him to go home together, witnesses this, and after calling him a she runs away, teary-eyed. In the end, they go to a karaoke, but just because Yame wanted to and none of her friend could accompany her. When they're in the room, a paper in the wall forbidding sex warns Junichi. Maybe Shinpei was right. Once Yame is there with him, his imagination starts picturing Yukana grabbing his microphone. But before his mind takes him further, he is brought back to reality. Yukana is singing and having fun, that's it. Junichi can't decide what to sing since he only knows anime songs. He's taken out of his thoughts by Yame, who's singing a lewd song. Another sign. Maybe Shinpei was right. Yukana asks Junichi to sing something and plays an anime classic that she sings with him. Afterwards, the protagonist admits he only knows enime songs, but to his surprise, Yame says she also knows lots of Anna songs so they could sing together. That's what they do, and they end up having fun. Although the protagonist still wants to believe it's all a coincidence, little by little the XX rule becomes more and more real, and when Yukana sits by his side and takes her coat off, a new Junichi is born in his mind. The Eichmann Junichi, his cool, manly self. In front of him, his pure self, his gloomy self, and his savage self behave and listen. If he wants to seal the deal, he first has to kiss the lady. Encouraged by all of his selves, he throws himself at her. Yame at first looks at him vulnerable, but out of the blue points out there is a hair popping out of his nose, breaking the charm. She then leaves to the bathroom, ashamed, thinking he won't be kissed that easily. When she comes back, Junichi is defeated, thinking everything's over thanks to his nose hair. But against all odds, Yame smiles at him and says she had fun and would like to go out some other time. They head home without realizing that they were being observed by Ranko. At 3. Next day, Junichi finds an anonymous love letter inside of his locker. When they get to know it, his friends envy, but Shinpei encourages him to go meet with her because if not, Yame will think he's a horrible person for ignoring a love letter. Kigo questions Shinpei as to why is he okay with that, and Shinpei explains that if Junichi surrounds himself with beautiful girls, they might as well get one. The protagonist finally decides to go where the letter indicates, to find no other than Ranko, who sniffs him and discovers he's a virgin. She then starts teasing him, trying to tempt him and makes him fall backwards. She sits on top of him, touching even more when Yame arrives. Junichi thinks he's dead, but Yame stops Ranko and introduces her to him. After the incident is clarified, Ranko starts talking about Yukana's boobs, teasing them in front of our protagonist, who is delighted to see how vulnerable and overwhelmed she looks. But when Ranko asks Yame how far has she gone with Junichi, she gets pissed off, grabs him and walks away, warning him about how dangerous her friend can be. Ranko watches them leave, kicking the floor and promising she will destroy that relationship. That same night, our MC receives a message from Yame that says they should hang out together with Ranko someday. And that's how they go out, the 3 of them, only to be seen by Nene, who runs away crying once again. One of the stops during the date is at a clothing store, where Yame and Ranko try different outfits. Yukana asks Junichi to pick between 2 pieces of clothing, and although he picks one, Ranko goes and jealously picks the other one. After a while, he is taken to the fitting rooms, where they brag their looks in front of him. When they exit the store, some guys approach, bothering the girls, and although Junichi tries to protect them, he ends up on the floor in the blink of an eye. It is Ranko who saves the day, taking the guys to an alley and beating them up. Back at home, the protagonist thinks he is pathetic, and that he has to become stronger to be able to protect Yame. He then finds Ranko, who claims to have fallen in love with him, after witnessing how he tried to protect them. She forcefully gets inside of Junichi's house with him and starts being quite clingy. She insists on him losing his virginity with her, convincing him that it will be worth it. The protagonist is losing his willpower when he remembers the time he spent with Yukana and decides to push her away, stating that he only wants to do it with Yame. This only angers Ranko, who throws herself at him, yelling that he won't have her Yukana, making Junichi understand that Ranko is in love with her. To their surprise, Yame opens the door and sees them, but as she didn't hear what Ranko said, the latter manages to convince her that it was all a plan to test if Junichi was with her only to stop being a but after testing him, she proved he really likes her. Yame thanks her, happy to have such a wonderful friend. This triggers Ranko's memories of their childhood, making her cry out of guilt. Next day, while going to school, Junichi meets Ranko, who begs for him not to say a word about her feelings. While they're talking, we can see Yue in the background, peeping, pissed off because there's another gal around Junichi. We now see Yue, who thinks of everyone else as her servants, believing that the entire world is hers. That is, until she met our protagonist, seeing him as some sort of doggy. Next, we see Junichi browsing through videos of different gals, saying he's doing it merely for research purposes. Tuffy's clearly enjoying it. This is how he comes across a stream of some red complaining about one of her servants, who's being really arrogant. The next day, we see Yu again, saying hi to everyone, but she only sees them all as they were her servants. As soon as Junichi arrives, she turns back to get a glance at him as his friends watch a video of the red-haired gal from before. Shinpei says he thinks he's seen her somewhere before, but doesn't know where or when. At lunch, Junichi goes have a bite with Yame, thinking this might lead to his first kiss. It's all of course in his mind, since when he snaps back into reality, he realizes Ranko is eating with them, so he can't possibly try to kiss Yame. As if that wasn't enough, Ranko seems to be conjuring some plans of her own. In that precise moment, Yu appears, trying to get Junichi's attention. But Ranko realizes this, so she asks her to leave, which makes Yu politely say that she'll talk Yu Junichi later. Ranko, still upset, starts thinking that Junichi and Yu might be in some kind of relationship. This also upsets Yu, but she doesn't give it too much thought. At the end of the school day, Yame is leaving the classroom when Yu appears again to ask for Junichi's help, apparently to buy some things for the professor. But in the end, it turns out to be just her wanting to take him to a cafe. Junichi believes that Yu is trying to make a move on him, daydreaming again about a girl being lewd with him as if. The truth is, Yui only wants to ask him about his relationship with Yame, but Junichi doesn't know how to answer. The moment he is about to say nice things about Yame, Yui gets upset, although she doesn't show it. Later at night, Shinpei is watching more videos starring the mysterious redhead gal and starts realizing something. He remembers where he's seen her before. The next day, while Junichi is attending class, Yui grabs him firmly from one of his arms just to make Yame jealous, while Shinpei records the situation with his phone from behind the classroom door. Shortly after, he shows said recording to his friends and reveals that Yui and the redhead gal are one and the same. This, of course, surprises them just in time for Ranko to arrive to gather information and learn the truth. Meanwhile, Yui takes Junichi to the rooftop, where she confesses that she really likes him and that she would like to go out with him, but this cannot be since he is dating Yame. So in order to Yui to go out with him, he would have to dump her. But our protagonist really likes Yame, so he politely refuses, bringing out Yui's true nature. She is really pissed off all of a sudden and calls Junichi her dog, a pet that should only wag his tail at her and nobody else. She proceeds to take out a recording of them at the cafe and threatens to show it to Yame if he doesn't dump her. As all seems lost, Ranko and the boys come to the rescue and reveal Yui's true identity as the mysterious redhead streamer by the name of Bo. This way, Yui is left with no choice but to surrender the recording and leave defeated. Yame later arrives and tells Junichi to walk her home and asks him about Yui. Junichi tries to explain that nothing weird happened, but Yame isn't worried at all. She knows our main character is head over heels for her, so she isn't worried about nobody stealing him. At 5, next morning, Junichi is having a lewd dream with Yame. When he throws himself at her to grab her appes, he wakes up to notice he's actually grabbing appes from another gal. He takes his time to analyze the situation. He wakes up to a gal sitting on top of him looking all blush while he grabs her No, it doesn't make sense. Then she stands up and reveals it's Nene, his childhood friend. Yes, of course, that explains why is she in his room. Wait, it doesn't explain a thing. They start walking to school with Nene clinging to his arm, pressing her body against him. Then they encounter his friends. At first sight, Minoru falls immediately for Nene, since she looks like a school grader. But as soon as he finds out she's only 1 year younger than them, he loses interest. Of course, Shinpei and Kigo get even more jealous, as there is another hot gal in his life and a childhood friend at that. He's in front of his locker when Yu says hi, asking him not to tell anybody about her asking him out, which makes it seem as if everything had gone back to normal. But secretly, she just restarted the plans from scratch. Nene appears out of the blue, and when she notices Yui, she starts mocking her temperament, saying she has the mood of a 30 years old. Yui gets deeply affected by this and steps hardly on Junichi's foot as she walks away. Our MC sits on his desk exhausted, and as soon as Yukana sees this, she goes to him to cheer him up by saying they'll go to a nice place during the weekend. On the background, Minoru shows to Kigo and Shinpei a map where all the cute school graders live. Shinpei replies that one day some men in nice uniforms are going to appear to ask some questions, and when that happens, he mustn't mention them. Ranko, Yukana, and Junichi are peacefully having lunch, or as peacefully as Ranko allows it. At that moment, Nene appears, hugging Junichi as if she was his girlfriend, making Yame jealous. That's until she recognizes her. It's Nene, Junichi's little sister. Yukana treats her kindly as if she was even younger. Nene is greatly upset and asks Yukana to crouch to her height. She then proceeds to press her against Yame's to measure them, showing that hers are much bigger. Ranko joins the fun for the amusement of the protagonist, who witnesses how the three of them rub against each other's chest. Although Nene finds it pleasant, she's still upset, as she doesn't want any of them to be with Junichi. So she throws a tantrum and yells at Yame, saying she's with Junichi only to make fun of him because there's no other way he could have a girlfriend. Yukana finds this pretty obnoxious and distasteful, saying that there are lots of good things in Junichi, and she probably knows it better. Nene discovers herself in a dead end since she was the one shaming him, so she runs away crying, calling them dummies. At night, the protagonist is watching Yu streaming, where she of course is ranting about a big monster calling her 30 years old and falls asleep only to wake up to a Nene sitting on top of him. She asks him to turn the little girl into a woman. This unties a calamity inside of Junichi's mind. Good MC and gloomy MC are watching Savage MC take over and destroy everything. It's not until Eichmann MC appears, fusing with the power of love for Yame, that Savage MC is defeated and peace is recovered. This way, when he goes back to reality, he kindly rejects Nene, who confesses her love. Junichi explains that her love is the main reason why he could never take advantage of the situation. Nene gets dressed and remembers when they were little kids they made a promise. If by the time they got older Junichi stopped being cool as he used to be, then they would get married. Sad, she says that in the end became cool. Next day at school, Junichi is once again exhausted but regains energy when he sees Yukana is sincerely worried about him. Yet his relief lasts but a second, because Nene appears to separate them and states that she'll be the best gal in order to steal the now cool Junichi from Yame. F6. So time after, the protagonist is with his friends who have a plan to help him progress with his girlfriend, play the king game. If he manages to invite them over alongside other girls, they could get things flowing smoothly, but of course, they only want to be part of the fun. During lunch, Junichi asks Yame if he can go to her house after classes, to which she nervously agrees, but when the protagonist adds that they should invite more people, Yame seems upset, leaving Junichi clueless. While he's waiting for his girlfriend, Yu walks by, and after inquiring about his day, getting to know he's gonna hang out with friends and she's not invited, she ends up inviting herself. Already at Yame's, she goes to her room to get changed and says it's okay if he peeks a little because he won't have the guts to do it. In the end, when he's finally gathered the courage to do it, she opens the door and invites him in. He is surprised by how nice her bedroom is and how cute she looks with her stay-at-home clothing. He gets flustered when she asks if he likes her breasts so much and asks about her parents to change subject. He then finds out they're not at home, what makes him realize it was his opportunity, and that might have been the reason why she was upset when he said they should invite more people over. Yame starts teasing him a little, approaching so he can touch her. But at that precise moment, Ranko, Nene, and Yui arrive to ruin the mood. It actually surprises the MC how such a feminine space can be so hostile. Shortly after, his friends arrive, and Junichi regrets everything by just looking at them. Shinpei is dressing like Kirito from Sword Art Online. Kigo is dressing like some sort of gambler from Las Vegas, and Minoru, well, Minoru carries 2 flutes. Why? Nobody dared to ask why. Once everybody has introduced themselves, the king game is proposed and approved. Yu suspects the guys will use it for purposes, but Nene and Ranko see it as an opportunity to get closer to Yame and Junichi. The game begins, and after some simple and naive tasks like Ranko slapping the soul out of Junichi, Yu talking like a baby, and Nene acting like a lewd idol, Shinpei reveals to the protagonist what's the catch. By placing the sticks in a certain way, he knows which number will each of them take, and that he will be the king, so when he orders it, he will get to kiss Yame, the same way they'll get to kiss the other girls. But it'd be too obvious if he did it himself, so he hands the sticks to Junichi, indicating how to hold them for the plan to work. Junichi is hesitating. Is it even right to have his first kiss that way? Is it right to cheat like that so those pure and kind girls fall into the hands of those? Everybody grabs a stick, and the king orders certain numbers to kiss other numbers, but Junichi had changed the order of the sticks, and the guys end up kissing each other. While the guys are squirming out of disgust in the floor, Yame whispers to Junichi, thanking him for saving them. It was all worth it in the end. She then says it'd be fun if they went somewhere together during summer, but in order to go they need money, so they decide they'll find a job together to save enough to go to the beach. Ep7. The guys are gathered, excited to go to the beach with the girls. But of course, in order to go, they have to save money. This is no problem, since Shinpei has already found the perfect job for all of them. Him and Kigo will work at a manga store, Minoru at a daycare, and Junichi as a kitchen assistant at a maid cafe. Kigo and Shinpei get a big surprise when they realize working at Toranoena is not as easy, as the boss is super strict. Minoru seems to be doing a good job at testing his luck with the authorities. When Junichi arrives to his workplace, he finds out the girls are working there. Although the manager is kind with the girls, he's pretty sore with the protagonist. First day at work goes smoothly for Yame, who casts a spell to make a customer's food taste better, and same goes for Nene. But things don't go as well for Yu, who's the clumsy type and trips, falling and revealing her pants to the delight of the clients. It is Ranko who stands out when a customer asks her to clean his pants, and she denies not very politely. Time keeps going by, and Shinpei gets better and better at his job. The protagonist sees Yu getting changed by accident, earning a slap, of course. Some other day, the air conditioner breaks at the maid cafe and almost leads to an indirect kiss between Junichi and Yame that gets ruined by Ranko. Back to Shinpei. He now has an entire team to help him improve sales. Time is almost over and the last day arrives. At Maid Cafe, the manager has a plan. The girls will be dressing like schoolgirls and will be reading novels to customers. Yu is the first one to pick a book, and it turns out to be a lewd novel. Completely pissed off, she leaves off to quit. The girls keep taking a look at the books. All of them have adult content. Nene takes advantage of the situation and reads passionately, trying to turn Junichi on. But instead of achieving that, it's only Yame who's flustered. Ranko notices that and starts reading to tease her even more. Yame suddenly takes a book and starts reading, fleetingly looking at the protagonist to see his reactions, but he stops her. Then the manager breaks in, all excited about the girls picking the books. Junichi then stands up to support the girls, saying it's not fair for them to read such embarrassing things in front of customers, which angers the manager. It's then when Yu arrives with a phone call from the owner, who cancels that day's event. But of course they'll get extra paid as promised. After the little incident, Yame and the protagonist are walking home together. She reveals she'd like to try some other jobs, but maybe a karaoke or a restaurant. She also names lots of things she wants to do with Junichi, like having matching phone cases or matching keychains or taking photos together. But more than that, she wants to have alone time with him at the beach. Ep 8. They finally arrive at the beach and the guys are delighted to see the girls in swimsuits. Nene doesn't take long to take advantage of this and grabs tight the protagonist's arm, pressing his chest against him. When Yu sees that, she gets upset because she doesn't have such big épées. While everybody is playing, Shinpei and the other guys realize things aren't going exactly as they had planned, but that doesn't mean they can't enjoy the view of lots of women in swimsuits. Junichi and the girls are playing volleyball, but instead of playing, it seemed Ranko is trying to take the protagonist down. Once Junichi is out of game due to a ball hit on his face, Ranko takes Yame to take a look around, time that Yu and Meme used to build this sand castle. When they're already done, and while they're adding the last details because nothing done by Yu can be but perfect, Junichi sees that Yame and Ranko are talking to two guys, and although at first he thinks he shouldn't be in the middle as she wants to talk to somebody, it turns out to be guys were bothering them and he served as a wonderful excuse to leave. Both Ranko and Yame are grateful and walk away hugging his arms. When they arrive at where they were, they tell the guys to go have fun and they'll take care of the things. The boys walk away in a gloomy aura. Ranko and Yame are going to sunbath and ask the protagonist to put sun cream on them. Savage MC, what we thought was comes back and takes over. Junichi fulfills the request and both girls are surprised with his technique. The boys are discouraged, but Shinpei reminds them that he's got a plan. During the night, they start getting ready to go spy the girls and they invite Junichi, stating that if he doesn't join them, he's implying he doesn't find them attractive. In the end, Junichi joins them while Minoru goes to the hot spring waters since those are mixed baths and there'll be little girls. In the middle of the night, while the girls are relaxing and having fun grabbing each other's boobs, the guys begin their mission. They know the owner has somebody pretty dangerous taking care of the peeping. Ranko is grabbing both Yame and Min's épées, and Yu looks at her own chest, sad because she's much smaller than them. Yame notices and approaches to tease her and laugh with her, making her feel a lot better. Meanwhile, in the woods, Junichi spots a trap and tries to convince them to go back, but this trap was set up by Shinpei, who knew the protagonist would try to stop them. So after voting, Kigo and Shinpei start hunting him until he falls from a cliff into the sea. However, when they continue with the journey, Kigo falls in a real trap. When Shinpei helps him out of the trap, they discover there are lots more. Kigo wants to turn back, but Shinpei points out they're closer and they shouldn't give up on their path. With new courage, they start running, evading the traps until Shinpei finally is hit by 3 fake arrows and sacrificing himself, tells Kigo to go on without him. Kigo runs, but a few steps later, he falls in another trap that causes fireworks, which the girls observe happily. The girls are playing with little fireworks at the beach, and Yame discovers a Junichi lying there. He was dragged by the stream until he's stranded on the beach. He finds out the guys were trapped and brought to their room to sleep. Yukana and Junichi are sitting together, and she asks what would the perfect date be, to which he answers an amusement park during night. She replies it sounds romantic and states she wants to go with him someday. Saddened, the girls observe how they are happy together. Ep 9. One day, Junichi and Yame are walking together when they run into an old friend of Yame, whom she hadn't seen in a long while. He says people from high school are going to meet the day after and invites her, to which she accepts. The protagonist is heartbroken. This Dai guy is a lot more handsome and cooler than him, yet he remains silent. Dai notices Junichi and Yukana introduces him as her boyfriend and leave, not seeing Dai licks his own lips thinking of her. Since Junichi is too quiet, Yame asks him if he's jealous and he replies that since that guy is better looking and a lot cooler, maybe it was hard to introduce him because she's ashamed of him. This pisses Yame off a lot and leaves. The guys are still hyped about the vacations, but the protagonist is all blue, so after a little persistence from them, he opens up. Shinpei explains that that's a NTR, but Junichi doesn't understand. Shinpei is willing to teach him Netterare, something a lot of people find appealing, making somebody cheat on their partner. Junichi thinks that makes no sense. Furthermore, Shinpei says this Dai guy probably has some sort of magic wand. Junichi finally understands that he should follow no advice from them. Took him some time, huh? He tries to talk to Yame during the day, but she ignores him. Even after classes, she completely ignores him. As he's heartbroken, his friends take him to the karaoke. Junichi, after a punch from Shinpei, finally has fun at the karaoke. But then they leave and see that at the cafe that's in front of the karaoke, Yame is with Dai. Only the two of them, talking really close to each other. This convinces the protagonist. Yame was only playing with him because he's a lame virgin and is now cheating on him. Well, he knew that was a possibility from the very start, but it still hurts. He really likes after all. She then appears, cheerful as always, but Junichi immediately tells her he saw her with Dai, and that there was no need for her to play with him, just because he's a virgin. And if that's the case and she was just toying with him, he'd rather stay a virgin. Next day at classes, Yame keeps ignoring the protagonist. Yu sees this and talks to Junichi, telling him he's being selfish by not thinking how might Yame feel to finally get pissed off and walk away. After classes, Nene reaches him and also hears the story of what happened, telling him that if he continues with that attitude, he'll end up marrying her because he won't be cool anymore. At night, Junichi is watching Yu streaming, which helps him understand the situation better. He asks his friends to meet them, and so does Yame. When the girls are together, before she can even say a word, She starts crying, which startles Ranko, who leaves. Of course, she goes to the protagonist to kill him, as she promised she'd do if he made her cry. But he then says he might be a loser and a but he likes Yame and wants to be with her. Ranko appreciates that he shows some guts, so he spares his life for the time being. While they're talking in the table next to them, a gang of guys sit down. No other than Dai himself starts talking about this gal that's so easy and how much he likes stealing somebody else's girlfriend. When they hear this, Ranko is about to go face them, but Junichi stops her and goes himself. Ep 10. Junichi then faces Dai, urging him to take back everything he said about Yame. This angers Dai, so they go outside with their friends and start a fight. The protagonist is easily taken down, but from the floor manages to make Dai fall and bites his leg, demanding he takes back what he said about Yame and promises to stay away from her. Dai refuses and orders his friends to kick him, but Junichi won't let him go until he promises. Dai deceives him, so Junichi lets him go, and since Junichi is still on the floor, kicks him, saying gals want to be used. Ranko appears, defeating a couple of Dai's minions, and behind her, Kigo, Shinpei, and Minoru come to scene, defeating some others. They tell Junichi to go after his girl while they take care of the garbage. Junichi calls Yame, but she doesn't pick up the phone as she's still at the bar talking to Nene and Yui, who encourage her to talk to the protagonist to know for certain if he likes her or not. Yame finally is determined to do it and leaves, while Nene and Yui remain wondering if it's such a good idea to help the enemy, although Yui won't admit her feeling. Back to Dai. While trying to escape, he pushes a little girl, making her cry, which turns Minoru into a rabid gorilla. Ranko corners Dai and kicks him hard enough to make sure he won't have any offspring, and then they realize the gorilla to end the job. The protagonist sends a message to Yame, asking her to meet behind the school, where he asked her out for the first time. She isn't showing up, but Junichi decides he won't leave until she arrives. Finally, she attends the meeting, and as soon as she shows up, he kneels on the floor once again, asking her out, telling her that the first time he actually had no feelings for her, but getting to know her made him fall in love with her. Yame repeats the question she made back then as to why he likes her, and he gives lots of reasons, like her kindness, her honesty, and her sweet smile. Yukana is deeply moved and makes him stand up, saying they're already dating. Afterwards, she says they should go somewhere nicer. After both get changed at home, they meet again, and Yame is wearing a piece of clothing Junichi had picked for her. And then she takes him to an amusement park, the place Junichi had pointed out as the perfect date. They have fun on all attractions. While Yame has fun, all of Junichi panics. When night falls, Yame takes him to a photo booth. The protagonist is terrified since he saw couples making out inside of the booths. Yet, when they go inside of one, Yame suggests they take a kissing photo and fools Junichi, ending up with a photo of him kissing the air like a fool. Soon after, they leave, and the protagonist asks Yame why does she believe in him so much if he did and say such bad things. She replies it's a secret and kisses him, to later run away smiling all flustered. Next day, Junichi meets the girl going to school, and they immediately notice something has happened between them, but Yukana grabs the protagonist's hand and runs with him to the school. Kigo, Shinpei, and Minoru look at them from a window and say it's their happily forever after. Ep 11. It's festival time at school. Both Yu and Yame are at a cosplay cafe alongside Shinpei, Kido, and Minoru, who are at the kitchen. The stand is a complete success. Ranko goes to have a drink and starts pestering Yu with exposing her, since she's dressing like a gal. But his attention goes to Yukana as soon as she sees how cute she looks. Yu and Ranko exchange deadly stares until Ranko leaves. Once their turn is over, Junichi and Yame decide to walk around together. Yukana is at the dresser when Ranko decides to guess the cup size of the girls. Taking advantage of the situation, gropes her friend who has a F cup. Later, it's Nene's turn, who has an I cup. Yu is upset the whole things, as she has small breasts, but is also touched by Ranko and reaches a C cup. Once the contest is over, Yame and Yu overhear there's a legend in the school that says that the couple who dances the last song of the festival together will have a wonderful relationship for the rest of their lives. Yame and Junichi gather and go to Nene's stand, where she is dressed like a bunny serving cold drinks. Nene of course wanted Junichi to go alone, but he attended with Yame. While the couple walks around happily, Yu makes a deal with Shinpei in exchange of meeting friends of her, and Ranko and Nene meet and come up with a plan. Ranko will dance with Yukana and Nene with Junichi. Shinpei grabs Junichi, under the excuse of something really big happening, and takes him to see that Minoru has some sort of sect where people exchange merchandising. When the protagonist is distracted, Shinpei steals his phone and runs away. While trying to find Shinpei to recover his cell phone, Nene finds him and takes him to the haunted house, where she'll be able to hug him as much as she wants, with the excuse of being scared. Yame wants to call Junichi but can't, since she ran out of battery. Ranko finds her and tells her to accompany her to take a look at the rest of the festival. Inside of the haunted house, the protagonist is lured to a creepy voice inside of a wardrobe, and while he's examining it, a scary silhouette touches Nene's shoulder, making her run away in fear. Junichi finally discovers it's just a recorder, and when he comes back, he encounters Yui, who asks him to help him with the bonfire for the last event of the festival. Junichi is helping with the firewood while Yui is lost in her thoughts. It might be just an experiment, but she wants to have that dance with him. Junichi appears behind her, startling her, which makes her trip and fall on top of him. Yui is telling him some pretty lewd stuff in the middle of a shame crisis when Junichi sees Shinpei and runs after him. Yui wants to follow him but falls in a trap one of the groups of the festival had set up to run an experiment. Shinpei is escaping as fast as he can, but he also falls into a trap. The protagonist grabs his phone once again but realizes he has no battery, so he goes to look for Yukana. Ranko and Yame are eating together, but the latter is spacing out a lot. She suddenly stands up and starts running. Ranko goes after her but falls into the last of the 3 traps, earning a trophy along Shinpei and Yui. It is announced that the last song is about to start when Yame and Junichi finally